Hi guys, it is cold, it is raining, then it's hailing, at night it's snowing. So I was really hoping that March would be better, but no, it isn't. But anyways, let's talk about what has happened in Grindavik, in Svartsengi on the Reykjanes Peninsula. So there has been another magma intrusion that hasn't led to an eruption. So I said yesterday in my video, what I'm interested in is how much magma did flow out of the magma chamber that's located underneath Svartsengi. And the Icelandic MET Office has released another chart today that shows us how much magma has flown out and compares it to the previous eruptions. So that's very interesting. We talk about that, and then we'll talk about everything else, what's going on with the residents in Grindavik and so on. So stay tuned. I'll go inside and then we start the video right now. So that's better, that's warmer and drier. So the Icelandic MET Office has released an update, and basically the headline is continued increased likelihood of an eruption. And that is interesting, guys, because something like this, we haven't seen something like this since the first magma dike has formed on November 10th. So since then, it has been pretty straightforward. Land increases, land rise, magma chamber underneath Svartsengi is filling up to a certain extent, and then boof, eruption, lands rising, lands falling down, then lands rising again, magma chambers filling up, eruption, land is sinking, magma chambers filling up again, land is rising, eruption. But now this is a little bit different. We know that the magma intrusion that has happened on November 10th, that was a very powerful one. That has really pushed through quite far, like it has pushed into a 15-kilometer long dike, even pushing underneath Grindavik and into the sea. So this time it wasn't that much, but you know, they're still estimating that something's going to happen very, very soon. So I don't think that people on the Reykjanes Peninsula in the areas around Svartsengi and Grindavik can lean back in their chair and say, well, I think it'll be quiet for a few weeks, because how I see it, from what I read from the statements of the Icelandic Meteorological Office, it could be just maybe a few days, because they have also said the magma continues to accumulate beneath Svartsengi. So as soon as there was an intrusion or an eruption, it keeps filling up. So there is a bigger magma reservoir underneath the magma chamber that is filling up, and that reservoir is feeding that magma chamber. So what does the Icelandic MET Office think is the likely scenario over the next few days? So they are saying three things, guys. They're saying the magma volume beneath Svartsengi continues to increase, which could lead to another magma intrusion and even a volcanic eruption. And the second point that they're saying is a volcanic eruption could start with a very short warning time, less than 30 minutes even, right? Because it has already flown into the dikes. And the third is a volcanic eruption is most likely to occur in the area between Stora Skogfell and Hagafell. So that is where we have seen the December eruption and the February eruption. The January eruption was a little closer to Grindavik. So that is their scenario. And they have also released a graphic which is interesting to see. You know, it's not, it doesn't give you the best overview in my opinion, because you need to read it quite a bit, which line is which. But you know, if you look at the purple line with the purple square there underneath the blue line, so that is the inflation episode that has happened in October and until November, and that's the square until there was an intrusion on November 10th. So there you can see how much it has inflated. And you can see on the left graph, there is the magma volume. So you can see how far that was. And then on the right side, you can see the days since the beginning of the inflation. So the purple line is basically 15 days since the beginning of the inflation, and then it has led to that 15-kilometer long magma dike on November 10th. And then right after November 10th, the magma chamber started filling up again and the land started rising again. So that's the blue line. So that's the inflation period, and that is more than 25 days. It was inflating until we saw the next eruption. So that was basically going until December 17th, and then it was leading to an eruption on December 18th. And there you see the magma volume, which is way higher than on the purple line that we've seen there before. And then after there was this eruption in December, the land rise continued right away again. Magma chamber was filling up again. And the next inflation episode, it's the green line that took place. And that was 25 days. So less than for the blue line. And then we saw an eruption on January 14th. And the magma volume this time was a little less, right? But still more than in November. And then same thing, the land started to rise again right after that eruption. And this did lead up to the February 8th eruption. And the period between the January eruption and the February eruption has shorted. So that's basically just 23 days. And then it did lead to an eruption. And then we have the latest land rise. So after the February eruption, same thing happened. Magma chamber was filling up again, land was rising again. And then it was leading to this intrusion that we had now on the 2nd of March. And you can see the time between events has shortened again. So only 21 or 22 days. And then it was deflating, so it was subsiding, the land underneath Svartsengi. And then you see the red dot, that's the latest status. And from there, it will continue to rise again. It is rising again currently, right? So it is a comparison of the volume of magma that has been accumulated underneath Svartsengi before it started to flow out towards the Sudnuka crater series, towards that long magma dike, and then either was leading to an eruption or to an intrusion. So this time it was the magma volume in the magma chamber was not super high. So they say we could still see along that new intrusion, we could still see magma coming to the surface, but it would then be not much and very, very slow. It seems there's not super high pressure in the magma chamber right now. So what is interesting for me now is I want to watch it with what extent the land keeps rising again and it keeps filling up again. And then we have to watch it. How many, cubic meters will be in that magma chamber again. So we know it's always erupting or forming an intrusion between like 8 to 13 million cubic meters. So this time it has been at around 8. If I look at that graph in January, or let's say the yellow line on the 8th of February, it has been close to 10 million cubic meters. But, when it was so forceful on November 10th, it has been a lot more. It has been almost twice the amount. So this is interesting. Can we make good predictions from that? I think this is really hard to tell. But, one thing is for sure, I think that there will be another event, another intrusion, or another eruption. And guys, if you happen to like this video, it would be awesome if you could leave this video a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And thanks for that. And let's continue with the video. And I would like to see, but they haven't released that yet. They usually release more like comparison how much the land underneath Svartsengi has subsided after an eruption or an intrusion. That is also an indication of how much magma did come out there. So it hasn't, from what I see on this graph, it wasn't much magma that has flown out of the magma chamber. So if it's filling up at the same rate, we should reach a pressure point pretty soon, again, where the magma needs to flow somewhere else, because the magma chamber has reached the point of maximum elasticity. So it can't expand or grow any further, and then it sends the magma out to somewhere, to some other areas, to somewhere else. So regarding this, there is a statement of Benedict Gunnar of Fikson. He's the head of deformation measurements at the Icelandic Meteorological Office. And he thinks that it is quite likely that we will see another magma flow within the next few days already. And why does he think that? Because only little magma did flow out of the magma chamber underneath Svartsengi in the last magma intrusion, and a tiny magma intrusion was formed. This is not a massive dike like we have seen it on November 10th. So when this intrusion started, that started around 4 p.m., 3:55 p.m. and shortly after the seismic activity, that greatest activity that did last for over an hour, but then it gradually subsided after 6 p.m. and then it was mostly over at 8 p.m. So he said the ground underneath Svartsengi has only subsided a little, and it's very little, so not much. So maybe only 1 day of magma accumulation or 1 day of land rise, right? They're always saying it's rising that much per day. So only 1 day of accumulation has been released. So basically by today, we already have reached that level again. And if it keeps rising again, then the chances are even increasing even further. He thinks that about something between 0.5 and 1 million cubic meters has flown out of the magma chamber and has flown into that tunnel. And the land is rising per day. It's filling up with roughly about 500,000 cubic meters per day. So it's maybe a day's worth or 2 days worth of filling that has flown out there. So he's quite certain that we don't have to wait 3 weeks for the next event. And why didn't it erupt? He was asked what happened, right? And so he thinks there's a blockage in the system that prevented the magma from reaching its goal, from going where it wanted to go, or from flowing further. But it is difficult to really determine what was the reason, right? We don't know what's going on underground. We can't X-ray it, unfortunately. It seems that magma corridor maybe doesn't want to accept more magma. Maybe it has hardened, it's clogged, right? So, and that's what I always worry, if an existing way where the magma has flown into that area in previous eruptions, if that's clogged now, where will it burst then? If I clog a pipe at one end and keep pressuring, it can burst in different areas, and we know it needs to flow from underneath Svartsengi somewhere, right? Basically, he says we have to see how this develops. We have to wait and see, but it is very likely that something, but they don't know what, is going to happen very soon. The current event is most likely over, but he also does not rule out that there could be an eruption somewhere resulting from this particular magma flow. But He thinks a new magma intrusion will happen very soon, and then it is to be determined whether that magma then will be able to reach the surface. So he says, I think we have to assume that there will be a new intrusion next week and possibly an eruption. But he thinks that it's more likely now that we might see another intrusion and not an eruption. So there is still pressure in the magma chamber underneath Svartsengi, and not much has come out in the current event. So that's what we have to monitor. That's what he's saying. So this has been the pressure we have always had, or the magma needed to come up with a new eruption or a new intrusion. So basically what he's saying, it kind of started, but then it stopped. So something is preventing it from continuing. And I'm wondering if the magma is being prevented from flowing further into the Sutnuka crater series, into that area. Will it then erupt closer to Svartsengi? Is that an option? I'm throwing this out here because we know what's not underneath. We know what's underneath Svartsengi, but we also know what's on top of Svartsengi. And you know, that magma chamber has been expanding and falling down and expanding, and the Earth's crust as well, rising and sinking and rising and sinking. Do this a while. You know, if you take a spade and you wanna, it's a hard ground, you put the spade in and then you move it, right? It lifts the earth a little bit, but you can still break it open, but you have to do this a few times. Lift it and let it fall down. Lift it and let it fall down until poof, then you can open it and then you could put your plant in if you want to plant something. So, and now the dogs are barking. Okay, by the way, I have asked Rudy if he would like to join me in this video, and this is what he said. Woody, do you want to come on camera? You want to come film with me? Want to come? Come, come, come. Come, come. No. So in the last 12 hours, there have been some earthquakes, but only 12 along the area of that magma tunnel. That's why the Icelandic MET Office says it could happen that magma will break through without actually having much seismic activity beforehand, because it's basically already there. So only a little bit, I think, you know, it's like a clogged pipe. If you keep throwing more into the pipe or pushing it, put more pressure on the pipe, it will eventually come out. So if that magma chamber is filling up and sending more into that dike that has formed, it might come to the surface. But, you know, they say the amount that escaped from the magma chamber was small, so it is still considered likely that the next eruption will occur pretty soon. As I mentioned, they think in the areas between Stora Skogfell and Hagafell. So what does that mean? What does the current situation mean for the evacuated areas? The MET Office has released an updated hazard map, and that is valid from 1 p.m. March 3rd until Tuesday, March 5th, 3 p.m., unless there is a new development that would call for a re-evaluation of that map. And then you can see that they have lowered the threat levels again. So the highest threat level, the highest is red, and that is zone 3. That's the area where they expect the next eruption. So let's have a look at what's happening in Grindavik. So the police chief of Sudurns has decided to allow a limited group of residents to access the town, or a limited amount of people. He still says that the conditions are dangerous and it is not recommended that the residents stay in Grindavik overnight. I think the earthquake swarm that we have seen with this magma intrusion, I don't think it has affected Grindavik too much. So I think not too much has changed, but who knows, right? These fissures, they can widen open at any time. So Grindavik remains closed to basically the public other than emergency responders and residents of the town, employees of the town's companies, and those who need to help residents. Only those people are allowed in town. And this time, the press hopefully is happy about that. Media personnel is authorized to enter the town in the same way as residents and company employees. So that is, I think, what the press wanted. They also filed a lawsuit that they thought they were treated unfairly. I mean, there was an incident, right? When we had that earthquake swarm and magma intrusion on November 10th and everyone was evacuated, one press guy tried to break into a home to probably film the damage, and the residents have been very, very upset. And since then, the police chief of Sudurns has not given the media much access until a few weeks ago, because they were really putting pressure and they say, we want to know why we're being kept out. We're reporting in war zones. So what's the problem, right? So this arrangement was set up on March 3rd around 4 p.m. local Icelandic time. And they're saying it will be valid for a week or less if the circumstances change. So they're kind of keeping up with their promise that they said, we want to reopen quicker, right? But also evacuate quickly. I mean, this time, at least they started evacuating right away when the earthquake swarm started. So again, the police chief stresses that children should not be in Grindavik. It's not a place for children to play. There is no school that is operating, and also the infrastructure in the town is still in a state of disrepair. So the police does say the Grindavik residents and everyone who's allowed to enter the town, they are entering and staying in the town at their own risk. So they keep repeating this. And also what the police chief of Sudurns is saying, he does not recommend for people to stay in town, especially not overnight, because we still have that hazard level, crack collapse, and they're still saying that cracks could open without warning. And also there are already so many cracks in the ground around the town, and they can get larger, new ones can form without warning. And they think that the danger is considerable from like falling, that people could fall into the cracks, and that these cracks could start moving, shifting, enlarging, widening. So they have measures underway to still map and define these cracks and the locations, ground surveying, geodetic measurements, and also optical inspections by physical people. And they have also fenced off quite a few cracks, but not all of them. And like I said, it can be sometimes very difficult if you have paved areas, paved roads. You don't see it right away because the pavement holds for a while, although the crack's already there, and then boof, it can open all over sudden. So what are they saying about the Blue Lagoon in Svartsengi? That's the area where the magma chamber is right underneath, right? They are saying there is a very high risk of lava flow at the Blue Lagoon, and the Icelandic MET Office, the Icelandic Meteorological Office, has said there is a very high risk of lava flowing into the operational area of the Blue Lagoon, and a hotel that's not belonging to the Blue Lagoon. It's called the Northern Light Inn, but that's in the same area, and for the power plant. So what they're saying is it can flow right in there, basically, right? So they're also saying, what about the access roads that lead into these areas where people can get in and out? And definitely for a while, these access roads were impacted when the lava did flow over the main road Grindavik, and basically the access to the Blue Lagoon was cut off, also to the Northern Lights Inn and also to the power plant. And then they started construction a new road, and basically they were using big dozers and excavators, and they were putting new material over the lava flow. So they were not pushing the lava aside. It wasn't possible. It's still too hot and too warm. So they were just building new materials over that lava to have this road to reopen, right? To reopen Grindavik. And they started this right away because access to the power plant and the Blue Lagoon, especially, valuable tourists need to be brought there. So that's why that was so quickly installed. So guys, that was today's update about what's going on in Iceland. I'll keep you updated, of course, daily. Check out my end screen. There's news about the Titan submersible disaster. Now they want to make a movie, and it's quite controversial in my opinion. They're saying it's partly fictional, but they're also accusing the media of destroying people's lives, kind of, sort of, implicating that Stockton Rush wasn't as bad as everyone thinks. I wonder how that will turn out in the movie. So check this out. I have a huge Titan playlist. I have a huge Iceland playlist and playlists with other stuff. So check out my channel, subscribe if you like. I'd love to see you again here. And guys, thanks so much for your support, for your supers, for the coffees you keep buying me. Thanks for that, and I hope to see you very, very soon. And my buddies behind me say thank you as well. So see you soon. Stay safe and stay warm and stay dry. I've been trying to stay dry, but it's not working. Bye, guys.